Et bonjour, bonsoir, ça dépend quand ce sera vu. Alors hier on s'en était arrêté sur un problème. J'avais dit que je referais toutes les animations, enfin tous les personnages et tout avant de restream. Où il n'y aura pas de problème. Je voulais utiliser celui-là, mais finalement on a fait autrement parce que j'ai découvert c'était quoi le problème. Du coup, là, l'arme se lève bien comme il faut qu'elle se lève. Et pour faire ça, en fait, dans le squelette de notre personnage, j'avais utilisé en haut cet os-là, ici, qui en fait n'est pas du tout le bon os. Il s'appelle IKR, mais aucune idée de à quoi il sert. Et en fait, c'était pas cet os-là qu'il fallait utiliser, mais l'os en bas. Les deux s'appellent End et je m'étais trompé sur ça. Parce que là, il y a bien Endgun et tout. J'avais essayé sur Endgun aussi. Et juste, vu qu'ils sont au-dessus du pelvis, et bah, les transformations n'étaient pas appliquées. Maintenant que c'est en dessous, tout est bien appliqué, il n'y a pas de problème. Du coup, regardez bien à chaque fois l'organisation du squelette afin de faire les correctifs aux bons endroits. Voilà, voilà. Du coup, on va pouvoir continuer sur notre lancée après avoir perdu facilement 2 heures. Mais c'est comme ça qu'on avance.
I hold control, the character will look down,
Donc,
up,
ouais,
into the middle, perfectly fine, super smooth, what
donc
we
ça
want.
c'est ce qu'on a, ça
Now let's
marche,
go ahead
nickel.
and close that, and now open our animation blueprint.
Notre APB shooter, on est bien dessus.
Let's
Là, on va
close
faire
this. I don't know why
tout ça, je
it
suppose.
says read only. Honestly, I don't know what's happening, but let's go into an in graph. And now what we want to do is after the default slot, because it will overwrite everything, we want to get our AO shooter from our asset browser.
Pourquoi on a 10 fois plus de trucs que lui? Bien dans APB shooter. On verra ça plus tard. Donc dans Anime Graph tout court, dans les blueprints,
Use bracket. Let's put that into the base pose and just put that into the
hop. AO tiré du bas shooter. Et c'est lequel qu'il a mis?
browser. Default slot. Use bracket. Everything. We want to get our AO shooter from our
Ah, ok. Juste comme ça. AO shooter, paf. Ah, c'est l'aim offset player, ok.
asset browser. Use bracket. Let's put that into the base pose and use
Hop, hop.
put that into the output pose. Now, an alpha, we want to leave that at 1, so just mention what our pitch is what we want to change. If I put this at 90, as you can see, it will now be aiming up. And the same with minus 90. So we want to change it, again like we did with the speed, dynamically while we
Ok.
play the game. So
Le pitch, c'est ce qui va faire changer. Compile. Ouais, c'est ça.
right click, promote to variable, and this will be our pitch. And now what I want to do is go into a event graph and basically make some code. Now you can see, I don't know why.
Non, event graph maintenant. Hop. Je sais pas pourquoi j'ai tout ça, lui, il a que ça.
Just open an external graph for some reason. Just double click in your event graph if that happens to you too. I don't know what
Ah oui,
happened.
non, c'est bon.
I never
Okay.
seen that before, honestly. Alright, so now basically, after that, before we actually go and do the aim, because this will apply for all characters, it doesn't matter if it's the same actor. What we want to do is basically just get the owner, so just go ahead and paste that real quick again. Now let me put like that. Actually, what we can do is just do a sequence. So the first time, the first output it will do this, and the second output will do some things here. And what we have to do here is basically get the base aim rotation. Okay, so this
Get base aim in rotation.
this will basically give us if we're aiming, basically the degrees that we're aiming up, down, to the left, to right, and stuff. Just right click it and split it so we can get all the individual actors, and of course we want to touch the pitch. Degrees that we're aiming up, down, to the left, to right, and stuff. Just right click it and split it so we can get all the individual actors, and of course we
Ouais,
want to touch
comme
the
ça on pourra
pitch.
faire les différents axes,
So let's get
plutôt
the other
qu'un truc
stuff.
qui
Let's
fait
put
les
a
axes
branch
uniques.
over.
Ok, ça en fait un branch.
Here. So the first thing that we want to do is to basically get our pitch and then make sure, well, basically check that if it's basically greater or equal than 180. Let's put that into basically greater or equal. Make sure, well, basically check is to branch over here. So the first thing that we want to do is to basically get our pitch and then make sure, well, basically check that if it's
Greater or égal. Ok. Non, c'est l'autre. Hop.
basically greater or equal than 180. Let's put that into our branch. If so, we want to get our pitch and basically set it in the true.
Le pitch en true, en set et true. Hop, hop.
To be to get our pitch and then basically decrease it by 360. This will just basically keep it in range from minus 90 to 90 and just apply it here. But if it's false, what we want to do is just basically get it from our direct output from the pitch. Get it. But if it's false, what we want to do is just basically get it from our direct output from the pitch, because it will be in range. And with that said, that will basically work. So everything works as normal, as you can see, as always, aiming. But now, if I look down, our character is looking down. If I look up, our
Ok.
character is looking up. And the same with the aim, as you can see. So there we go. Everything is going ahead and working as we want. The aim offset is go ahead and set it up. So now we can go ahead and move into the actual shooting. So let's go ahead and do so. Alright, so let's set up our shooting system. So
Ah, je vais juste poser une petite question à Chatouille. Je lui ai demandé de faire quelque chose. Voir si elle a fini mon petit package. On teste le GPT, mais bah, pour l'instant, il m'a plus déçu qu'autre chose. Il m'a envoyé un lien, mais il marche pas. Alors, téléchargement, enregistrer. Qu'une fois que tu es sûr qu'il contient
so let's just close the animation blueprint and just open our third person character.
third person caractère, oui chef. Est-ce que tout est bien compilé déjà? Est-ce que tout est bien sauvegardé? Ça, non. Hop, voilà.
Blueprint. Now let's do the same that we did with the aim. Basically create a new input. So let's go into third person.
Alors, third person. third person, input.
Input, actions, right click, and input, action.
Right click, input, action.
It's gonna be EA underscore, basically use fire, we can say, instead of shoot, which is a bit more correct. And again, we don't have to look.
EA fire.
Do anything, so we can just close it. Now let's go into the collection,
IMC
and it's the
défaut.
same with the other one, basically add a mapping, and
Alors, déjà on va refermer tout ça. Tac, tac. IA fire. On fait ça. Clic gauche.
select our fire. I know why it opens the other one. And now in fire, just select this key, and now we can just press the left mouse button. So it will be a sign. Of course, you can go ahead and search it here, but for me, it's just easier to click this button, you know. Alright, so with that done, we can just go here and do our EA underscore fire. Again, the one with the arrow. Symbol. So again, this is not a shotgun or a pistol, this is a rifle. So what we have to do is while we hold our input, we have to be shooting in a loop, right? But for now, what we're going to do is just set it so it will just basically fire once. Of course, when we have the logic of shooting, we'll implement that loop that is while we are holding instead of just clicking once, okay? Because it's a rifle. But for the sake of just making the logic, for now, we just make it so it just once. So there are many methods of basically firing and shooting and so on in games, right? We have the method of physical 3D bullets that fly across the scene, or line traces, which is a line trace is basically just an invisible line, like a right cast that will go from one point and another. And from my experience of making firearms in Unreal Engine, for me it works better with line traces. It just feels much better. But for things such as arrows and with a bow or grenades, of course, a physical object with a velocity will work better. But for the sake of my experience with line traces, which is an invisible line that will go from A to B, will just work better. So let's get from started and do a line trace by channel. The starting point
Ok,
of
donc
this
là en gros,
line will basically be
de ce que j'ai compris, il dit que ça marche mieux quand c'est pas un objet réel qu'on tire avec les armes à feu, excepté quand c'est pas des armes à feu du coup, mais une crossbow, une arbalète ou quoi, mais qu'il n'y ait pas vraiment de projectile, et que ce soit un trait et tout. Donc on va voir. On va voir. C'est vrai que pour un shooter troisième personne, c'est pas très nécessaire. Après, au pire, on pourra modifier. On sait où c'est, on aura juste à changer.
be a rifle. As you may remember from the beginning of the tutorial, I explained that we're gonna be using this bone that we can use to spawn our bullets, and which is the one that we want. And I think that was the one that we want, yeah. So basically beacon muscle flash. So let's just go into the details and just copy the name because it has to.
Alors, content draw. On se met dans All, SK, tiré du bas, AR, fort. On prend Ça va être le muzzle, je suppose. Ouais. Et là, copier le nom du...
To be exact, all right? And
Hop. Hop. Hop.
we can just get the rifle component and you say get socket.
Du coup, on prend le rifle component.
And we just get the transform.
Et get socket transform.
Of that socket. So we'll get a location, rotation, and scale. In this case, we can put the name, and then about the transform space, it has to be actor, I believe. I'm not exactly sure. We'll test it in a second. Now for this, right click, so we just split it into the location.
Donc là, actor, on va voir la clic droit, split structure.
Rotation scale. And then here we want to put our
La location sur le start.
location. Now for the rotation, we want to basically get the forward vector so we know where it is aiming right now, right? Where
Get forward vector. En gros, le vecteur qui va en
and now
avant.
we can just multiply it by a value. So just right click.
Multiply, donc on appuie sur la touche fois, multiply. Tac.
And convert this into a float, single precision.
On convertit.
So this will value. So just right click right now, right?
Ok.
Where it's looking forward.
Right click sur le jaune en bas à
multiply
gauche.
by a value. So just right click and convert this into a float, single precision. So this will be the distance that our bullet will travel. Now, of course, this is important. This will determine a lot of your gameplay functionality, right? How far will your bullets travel and how far will you be able to hit the enemies? Now, this is up to you, but for now, I'm gonna be putting around 3,000. It is not a lot for a firearm, but like you said, I'm gonna be playing with the values as we go, and of course you can do so. Now let's get the location and just add that with our
Alors, hop, ça va peut-être le sbel. De là, on tire un plus. Hop, ça en tire un petit peu, ça en tire un petit peu, on retire un petit peu, voilà. C'est pas trop mal.
vector here, and with that will work. So the
Il me manque le end. Hop, voilà.
channel will be visibility, and I just put this for duration so we can preview our line. Okay, so stress channel will be visibility, and I just put this for duration so we can preview our line.
Velocity for duration.
Okay, so you will see how it works, and we'll also see if the RTS actors we want or we need another transform space. So if I just aim and shoot, as you can see, we're not seeing anything, and probably
On va confirmer qu'on ne voit rien.
wait, why it's not shooting? Wait, let me just print to make sure the input is going okay. Yeah, okay, you can see hello in here, so that's good. And I did set this for duration, so honestly I don't know why right now I'm not seeing I'm not seeing that. Maybe it's because I had to set this in weld. Let me just check. Yeah, so basically, as you can see right now, we're shooting. But basically it's going in a very
Bon. Ça suit pas le vecteur forward en tout cas.
bad direction. Basically it's going always into the it's going basically always into the left of the um of the bullet, right? Of the arm. It's going to the left. So what we can do is just quickly check out the component transform space. Let's see that will work for us. No, that will not work for us. And I checked the last one, just parent bone socket. That will also not work. So the one that we want is the
World.
component.
Ah bon?
Yeah, component. Or what? No, it was world, right? Sorry about that. It was world. Yeah, it was
Ouais,
world.
c'est world.
But we want to change what it's looking. So let me quickly see in the bone where it's actually aiming. All right, yeah, you can see the things are changed actually. So what we want is to get the Z, because the Z is looking forward. Because normally in games, if I go here, you can see that the
Ouais.
well, in this case it's actually the Y, but normally it's the X is what is looking forward, right? And that's normally how it goes. But in this case, it is changed for some reason. Okay, they created it like that, and it's with the Z axis. So actually, that will mean that
Donc là, c'est pas get forward vector qu'il va falloir mettre. Et le bleu, c'est la hauteur. Donc,
we need to, instead of get the forward vector, get the up vector, because
ouais. C'est bien ça, get up.
the Z is the up vector. And with that, that should go ahead and fix the issue. So press play. As you can see, there we go. Now is going ahead and shooting forward, as you can see. Now, right now, that is good, but I don't like that. Why I don't like what we just did? The thing is that right now, even though it's shooting correctly, it's not really always going into the center of the screen. And let me show that with a simple widget. So also it will work for the future. So I just create a user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, WB underscore. Let's just name this the HUD. You search a
Ouais,
canvas,
ouais.
you pass it
Stop.
here. So what we're going to do is just
Hop.
right now, even though it's shooting correctly, it's not really always going into
Donc là, on va
the
faire un
center of
canevas
the
de ce que
screen.
j'ai l'impression.
Let me show that with a simple widget. So also it will work for the future. So I just create a user interface, widget blueprint.
Alors, content, clic droit. Widget blueprint.
User widget. So also it will work for the future. So I just create a user interface.
Alors, clic droit. Ah, c'était caché. User interface, widget blueprint. Hop. Hop.
Widget blueprint, user widget, WB underscore. Let's just name this the HUD. You search a canvas, WB underscore. Let's just name this the HUD.
WBHUD. WBHUD. Un petit HUD. On ouvre ça.
a canvas, and just pass it here. So what we're going to do is
Alors, on recherche Canva dans la palette. Canva panel, on le glisse dans le HUD.
just create the aim target, right? I don't know how you actually name it. Just drag an image.
Hop, on vire tout. On met une image.
Set the anchors in the center.
Et
I don't know how you actually name it. Just drag an image. Set the anchors in
anchors au milieu.
the center and put the position X and Y to 0. Put the
0, 0. Ok, l'encre est en haut à gauche et là on la fout au milieu. Hop.
alignment to 0.5 and 0.5.
Alignement 0.5, 0.5.
And just put the size to be like 10 maybe. Yeah, pretty small. And then you change the brush on here to be a circle. In this case,
Image. Dans. Cliquer dessus peut-être. Hop. Ouais.
we have actually brush on here to be a circle. In this case, we have actually an anchor, so that will work for us.
Ouais, j'ai pas ça. On va mettre le petit rond là, ça ira bien.
So what we have to do now is basically in the
Ça marche pas. Bon, on va laisser ça, hein. Pour l'instant, on n'a pas trop le choix.
character in the begin play, basically what we have to do now is basically in the character in the begin play, basically create that widget so you can use for us. So what we have to do now is basically in the character in the begin play, basically create
On n'a pas tout à fait le même truc, mais je pense que c'est...
that widget, so you can use this node, which is create widget. And we can just find the HUD and just add to the viewport. So
To viewport, tac. Là on rajoute le canevas à l'image à l'écran, je suppose.
add into the screen, right? With that said, you can see that when I press play, it's in the center, but our line traces are not actually going into that knob. As you can see, I know it's a bit small, maybe. Yeah, let me make it a bit bigger. But as you can see, let's do 20, the double. But as you can see, it is not going into that anchor. It's totally wrong, and it's because the rifle is not really aiming into that point. So there's a quick thing that we can do, and it's basically okay, and it's just what we have to do. But basically, instead of going from the destiny from, so we'll begin, of course, from the rifle, but finish for when the camera is looking. So let's get rid of that up vector.
Alors,
And get our full camera. Get the world rotation. And then get the forward vector and put that there. And with that small change, you'll see that this will now be fixed. Now it will actually go into where
ça décale un peu sur le côté, quoi. C'est la caméra, quoi.
the target is, right? And why is that? Well, the reason is that before our you can see that our firearm is basically slightly, you know, down and whatever, so it would had never gone there. But now with that fix, it will always be in the direction that the camera is looking, so it will really go into the center, or pretty much the center. So for now, this will work for us, okay? You can see that sometimes it does not really go into the center, but don't worry, we'll tune it in a bit later. But the functionality is done, so there we go. Let's put this here so it's a bit better. We don't need that anymore. So now let's go ahead and
Ouais, du
just
coup,
apply some firearm. It's basically slightly, you know, down and whatever, so it would had never gone there. But now with that fix, it will always be in the direction that the camera is looking, so it will really go into the center, or pretty much the center. So for now, this will work for us. Now with that down and whatever, so it would had never gone there. But now with that fix, it will always be in the direction that the camera is looking, so it will really go into the center and whatever. So firearm is basically slightly, you know, our you can see that our firearm is basically slightly, you know, or you can see is that the firearm is basically slightly, you know, down and whatever, so it would had never gone there. But now with that fix, it will always be in the direction that the camera is looking, so it will really go into the center, or pretty much the center. So for now this will work for us, okay? You can see that sometimes it does not really go into the center, but don't worry, we'll tune it in a bit later. But the functionality is done, so there we go. Let's put this here so it's a bit better. We don't need that anymore. So now let's go ahead and just apply some damage to where we...
Bon. Alors, je sais pas si j'ai raté. Non, j'ai rien raté ici. Hein. On va regarder une dernière fois parce que...
So now let's go ahead and better. We don't need that anymore.
Ah. Là, il faut le plop, plop, plop. Ça, plop, plop, plop. Ah. Hop, ça rentre là, ça sort là.
So now let's go ahead and just apply some damage to where we basically hit. So let's make sure that we have hit something, so if it's true, and then break this. And we will just get all the parameters of what we have hit. In this case, let's get the actor and say apply damage. In this case,
Hit, actor.
okay, let's just apply, for example, 5 of damage, or 3. Actually 5. So this is the damage that your firearm will do, okay? And later on we'll have the enemies that will have health, so you get the idea. We can use sprint something, but it doesn't really matter. Right now what we need to do is also apply some effects, right? And some sounds. They are important. We need some fire effects and some sounds. Now for now, let me just quickly do the loop that I was talking about, and we'll add the sounds and stuff. So basically we have to make it so that when we are holding, alright, we'll be basically shooting. So there's actually a way to just plug in triggered.
Hop. Hop.
And you can see that now if I hold, it
On compile. Oh, c'est beau.
is basically shooting a lot of times. And basically, it might be too many. So I think that we can do is a do once, okay? Basically,
On stop. Tac. Do once, donc fait une fois. Et après on va lui dire de répéter quoi.
it will just do it once, but have a small delay. So let's say that right after we have hit it something. We'll basically shoot it.
Sequence.
We're gonna make a sequence, and on here we're gonna make a delay of 0.1 seconds, and this is gonna be the rate.
Hop là. Alors, on va tout bien. Tac, tac. Comme ça.
That we are gonna be able to shoot. So we're gonna be
Ah, ouais. Complete. Reset. Ok. D'accord.
basically with an interpretation of 0.1. You can see then right now.
Compiler, sauvegarder. Je ferai les sons à la bouche.
It is much many more bullets because
Je regarde vite fait s'il a préparé mon paquet de GPT. Hop, bon, c'est pas encore prêt apparemment, ce qu'il me raconte.
we're limiting how many we can shoot each second. And of course you can play with that values to get what you want. But let's do like 0.03 or something, right? You can play with the rate. This will depend, of course, if you have a submachine gun or a rifle, whatever, right? But for me, I think that this for now will work. I will really get a more of a sense of if it's actually working when we add our, how we say it, fire effects and stuff. Now let me do one more thing. Is that if we shoot.
Il a mis 0.0, c'est ça. Je sais plus ce qu'il a mis.
Whatever, right? But this 0.03 or something, right? You can play with the rate.
Ok. C'est tout pareil. On est des copieurs. On compile, on sauvegarde. Et on n'a pas besoin d'aller regarder, on sait ce que ça a donné. Tire 3 fois plus vite.
Right, but for me, I think that this for now will work. I will really get a more of a sense of if it's actually working when we add our, how we say it, fire effects and stuff. Now let me do one more thing. Is that if we shoot without aiming, we can also shoot backwards or something like that. I don't like that. Let's do the same that we can aim forward, but when we shoot and without aiming, if you get it. Basically look backwards, or basically what we're aiming without directly aiming, if it makes sense. I basically just, yeah, you probably didn't understand that, but let me just showcase that, right? So let me just go before the line trace right after that, and let's just copy this to movement. So it's gonna be basically rate rotation to movement.
Alors. tout ça, on décale. Et là-haut, ça, CTRL-C, CTRL-V. On va voir s'il y a d'autres choses.
And use control inside rotation. But actually what we can do is just do a nice custom event that we can call with that function. It's gonna be like aim. If you get basically look backwards,
Non, peut-être pas en fait.
or basically what we're aiming without directly aiming, if it makes sense. I basically use, yeah, you probably didn't understand that, but let me just showcase that, right? So let me just go before the line trace, right after that, and let's just copy this to movement. So it's gonna be basically rotation to movement, and use control inside rotation. But actually what we can do is just do a nice custom event that we can call with that function.
Cust. CUST. Add custom event.
It's gonna be like aim. It's gonna be aim forward. I just
Aim forward.
basically call that aim forward.
Donc, tire en avant quoi.
Put that over here. Put that there. Put that there. There we go.
Alors, tac, tac, tac. Tac. On est bien. Ça a l'air.
I'll be aiming forward. And now, let me just put that actually down. And I will need another custom event to do the opposite. So, custom event, stop. Aiming forward. There we go. And we'll basically
Stop. Aiming. Arrêtez de tirer devant. Hop, hop.
copy the same and paste it here, but do the opposite. So,
On recopie ça. Hop. Sans le link là. Et
go back to normal. So, again, orient back to movement, but not to the desired rotation.
tac. On coche,
So
on
here,
décoche.
we'll basically go and get the aim forward. Actually, we can just do it in the started. Aim forward. There we go, aim forward. But when we cancel it and stop, so you complete it, we'll need to do the stop aiming forward. So when we start holding it, we'll start to aim forward, and when we stop holding it, we'll stop aiming forward. And I forgot to basically plug that in there. Alright, there we go. And the same for this one.
Ouais, je me disais bien qu'il manquait ça là où il y était. Hop, hop, compile. Sauvegarde.
So now you see that now that will work if I
Ok, déjà le perso il se tourne pour tirer. Il tourne direct, mais c'est propre, au moins c'est rapide.
I start shooting, you can see that now it's looking where that. Now there's a problem with the feet, and it's that they're not moving correctly, but that's a whole other world. So if you want to see a tutorial on that, go ahead and check that out. But right now, if we aim, everything's fine. Of course, if we walk and aim, that's good. But you basically get the idea. Alright, so we have a lot of things done. So let's go ahead and basically add our effects, such as sounds and some particles, so when we hit, and also some muzzle flashes. So let's go ahead and do so. So for our effects, we're gonna be using another free asset pack because those are more of an advanced effects that
J'ai
we
rien dessiné.
really would. Let's go ahead and do so. So for our effects, we're gonna be using another free asset pack because those are more of an advanced effects that we really would need a whole separate tutorial for them. And so we're gonna be using the infinity.
Ok, donc on va dans Fab, Start Exploring, paf, paf, Infinity, on va voir,
Blade effects are gonna be linked in the description. Again, totally.
la map, s'en fout les animations.
Free from Epic Games, so you just add it into the project. So make sure you go ahead and apply to show all price as we did with the other ones and select 5.1, which is the latest one. It's okay, it will work.
On va mettre Weapon Effect. Hein. Weapon Effects. Ok, on va regarder, je vais continuer vite fait le tuto, juste regarder ce que c'est.
Now, what that is basically importing.
Et du coup, vu qu'il
Let
n'y a
me
pas, il va
go
falloir que
back
je cherche.
into
Donc je
my
vais arrêter le stream là,
project.
après,
And this is
je vais chercher
because
l'effet, et
I
puis...
actually forgot to basically add the shooting animation itself, because right now it's very boring. And it's because I forgot to add that. Okay, sorry about that. So let's go into shoot animations, and we have the fire rifle shoot, which is that, which is what we want. So what we can do is just right click, go into create, and do an anime montage. An anime montage will just be an animation that
on peut faire ça. Alors... on va dans nos animes starter, dans shooter animation. Ça va être celui-là. Ouais, c'est celui-là.
go into create and do an anime
Create.
montage. An anime montage will just be an animation that we can call at any time from a blueprint. In this case, it will be here. So right before doing the line trace, okay, let's put this here.
Alors, on retourne là-dedans, on prend tout ça, on le décale.
And let's just go and call this, which is going to be the play montage. It's going to be the other one, the node with more things. And we're going to get the mesh of the player and just apply it here. And now select our fire shoot. Montage. With that, you will see that we can go ahead and press play, and it will shoot, and now it's basically shooting. A lot, as you can see. I mean, it feels good, but it shouldn't lag. Now, when we are aiming, you can see that it will not be shooting, and this is for many reasons. The thing is that we have to basically convert it into an additive animation, because if not, if you're aiming, it will just not do so. You kind of just ignore it, right? Another thing that we can do is change the play rate on here to 0.05, so the animation will have more time to play, so it's not like spamming so much. You know, you can play with that settings, right? But another thing I want to also do in the montage is basically use an name notify. So I can go ahead, and when we shoot, put an name notify. So basically, can I shoot? Oh my god, can I shoot around here? Do you know it's gonna here? So we can add a notify here in the track, a notify, montage notify, and on here, then I can do so. Nothing I want to into and that, which is what we want. So what we can do is just right click, go into create, and do an anime montage. An anime montage is player, as you can see, shooting basically if you're aiming, right? Another thing that we live, so the animation will have more time to play, so it's not like spamming so much. You know, you can play with that settings, right? But another thing I want to also do in the montage is basically use an name notify. So I can go ahead, and when we shoot, put an anim notify. So basically, can I shoot? Oh my god, can I shoot around here? Do you know what's gonna here? So we can add a notify here in the track, a notify.
Pauvre gars, quoi. Il y a rien qui va. Et c'est pas grave. J'ai pas un notify. Comment il a eu ça?
Animation will have put a notify. So I can go ahead and can I shoot here? Do you know what's gonna here? So we can add a notify here in the track, a notify, montage notify.
Ah. Notify. Montage notify, ok. Après, ça dépend de la ligne, quoi. Il faut bien se mettre sur celle-là pour faire.
And on here, then I can do so.
Alors, on sauvegarde. On baisse ça. Dans ça.
In the notify begin. So basically, and on here, then I can do so in the notify begin. So basically, it will not shoot instantly once we hit. It will wait. So basically, the animation actually goes ahead and shoot, and this is what we want. Now, right now,
J'ai pas remarqué que.
because the play rate is too high, it will really kind of skip a lot of that. And so let's try to put it just a bit better. You know, you can play with the things.
Là.
Alright, so another thing I was talking about was playing an additive animation. So it's going to asset details, going to the anim type.
Alors, rifle, fire, shoot.
Type and change this into mesh. So in the notify begin. So basically, it will not shoot instantly once we hit. It will wait until the animation actually goes ahead and shoot, and this is what we want. Now, right now, because the play rate is too high, it's a bit better. You know, you can play with the things. Alright, so another thing I was talking about was playing an additive animation. So just go into asset details, go into the anim type and change.
Donc, additive settings, additive anim time,
Just into mesh
mesh, space.
And then in here, we're gonna say scaled once again.
Ici, on va dire scale.
And then get our idle hip.
And get your idle
So now you can see it's exact same thing, but now when we aim, it will also play, which is basically what we want. So everything is now.
Let's see. C'est moche, mais c'est ce qu'on veut. Il n'y a rien qui va. Visuellement, il n'y a rien qui va. Après, le reste, c'est bien. Vivement qu'on arrive à la fin où on pourra changer tout ça. J'espère que ce sera pas trop casse-couille.
So now I guess that the pack has installed. Let me go. Now it's with the button again. So now we have the folder here.
C'est là qu'on va
So here we have a few
s'arrêter. Qu'est-ce
effects.
qu'il y a?
The one that we want is gonna be a mouse of flash. So basically, you just go into the third-person character, and right in here, before doing the line.
Ok, bon, on va s'arrêter là. Et je vais chercher des weapon effects du coup. Vu que ceux-là sont plus disponibles. Et je vous trouverai ce qu'il faut. Bonne soirée, puis bah je reviens ce soir vers 2-3 heures après le taf. Salut, salut.